Tom Hanks now says that if Philadelphia were made today, he wouldn't do it because the character was gay and he's not. Well, besides the fact that this would force all gay actors to reveal their sexuality, even if they didn't want to, great actors, which Tom is one, try hard to keep their private lives private so we don't think of their real lives when we see them in a movie that attempts to transport us into a different world. Could you really look at this actress now and not think of the trial? Should she only play bed-shitters now?
Maher's anti-woke assault on Hollywood shows no sign of easing up. The comic went full scorched earth on actors, producers, and casting directors he says are forcing a woke agenda that's hollowing out modern movies. He took special aim at casting directors and their obsession with appropriation politics, and the result was explosive. Buckle up, because this one is about to detonate.
Casting directors have to stop listening to the casting police and go back to doing their job, which is picking the best actor for the role. Now, I mention this because a lot of people lately are either apologizing for or calling on others to apologize for playing roles they call appropriation. James Franco was just chosen to play Fidel Castro, and John Leguizamo posted, "No more appropriation. Boycott. This is f***ed up. I don't got a problem with Franco, but he ain't Latino." Okay, but John Leguizamo is Colombian American. He ain't a Venetian, but he played one. He ain't a French little person or an Italian plumber, but he played them too, because he's...
Mars's first target was actor Leguizamo, who appears to have fully embraced the woke playbook and now condemns a practice that ironically helped fuel his own success. Leguizamo built a long career portraying a wide range of characters, frequently stepping beyond the ethnic and cultural limits that today's woke casting roles want to impose. Mars spotlighted the obvious hypocrisy. If casting directors had restricted Leguizamo to only Colombian roles, how many jobs would he really have landed? The answer is clear, yet Leguizamo, like many in Hollywood, seems oblivious to the contradiction. Mars pulled no punches, arguing that this selective outrage undercuts the very values the woke crowd claims to defend. It's a textbook example of how Hollywood's fixation on political correctness ends up punishing talent instead of celebrating it, with Leguizamo as the perfect case study.
Creating sounds like an unforgivable sin until you remember that's what acting is. That's why acting jobs are called roles. Sean Penn won an Oscar for playing gay civil rights martyr Harvey Milk. At the time, it was considered a courageous act of solidarity for a straight male movie star to play a homosexual. Now it's the opposite. Eddie Redmayne played a transgender woman in The Danish Girl, but now calls that a mistake because many people don't have a chair at the table. Well, actually, in movies now they do. And what does it have to do with you playing trans? Does it then work the other way? Can trans actors only play trans characters? Because that's not going to be a good deal.
Restricting acting roles by gender, geography, or political identity does real harm to the craft. At its core, acting is about inhabiting another person's life, exploring experiences beyond your own, and delivering a character with truth and depth. When casting is boxed in by rigid identity rules, it doesn't just shrink opportunities for actors, it drains stories of creativity and texture. Nuance disappears, performances feel stiff, and audiences notice immediately. Cinema thrives on surprise, on watching actors defy expectations and stretch boundaries. When ideology replaces talent and storytelling, films become dull and forgettable. In the end, viewers pay the price, left with movies that entertain less, inspire less, and lose their emotional punch.
Is acting always about making us feel our common humanity beyond separate identities? A black George Washington in Hamilton, of course. But Ryan Gosling as Frederick Douglass? Yes, that would be problematic.
Mars also exposed another hypocrisy Hollywood prefers to ignore. In today's climate, some actors are applauded for crossing identity lines, while others are attacked for doing the exact same thing. One kind of boundary-crossing performance is praised, while the reverse sparks instant backlash. It's a double standard everyone recognizes, yet Hollywood refuses to admit. Mars argues this imbalance is not only unfair, but nonsensical. Acting means stepping into someone else's experience. Granting that freedom to one group while denying it to another isn't equality, it's ideological enforcement. Instead of rewarding skill, Hollywood polices beliefs, weakening storytelling and leaving audiences with fewer genuine, powerful performances.
Just go by merit and let the best actor win, which seems like what happened when Ana de Armas just got picked to play Marilyn Monroe, even though she's Cuban with an accent. Hey, maybe she should play Fidel Castro and James Franco can play Marilyn Monroe, and then we can all stay in our lanes. Is that what diversity and inclusion look like now? Everybody staying in their lane?
Mars jokes about the absurd extreme, casting James Franco as Marilyn Monroe because he's American and Ana de Armas as Fidel Castro because she's Cuban. He quips that this might finally satisfy the woke crowd. The image is funny, but the point is serious. Hollywood's far-left standards are drifting into pure absurdity. Rather than prioritizing talent, fit, or narrative strength, casting choices are increasingly driven by identity checklists. The result is a bizarre creative space where logic and artistry come second to ideological compliance. Mars's message is blunt. These rules don't improve movies, they make them laughable. If this continues, the industry risks alienating actors and audiences alike, turning art into a rigid political exercise.
Arabia was gay. Peter O'Toole wasn't. I can live with that. Because he was so cool, he almost made me gay. Emma Stone caught hell for playing a Hawaiian, Jake Gyllenhaal for playing a Persian, Gal Gadot for wanting to play Cleopatra, Johnny Depp for playing an Indian, even though he's not an actual Comanche, and spoiler alert, he also doesn't really have scissor hands. And he's not actually a drunken pirate. Okay, bad example.
Mars' argument is simple but often ignored. Actors are paid to portray people who don't reflect their real lives, beliefs, or personalities. That's the job. Acting means immersing yourself in a character whose politics, background, or worldview may be completely different from your own. To argue otherwise is to misunderstand the medium. Acting isn't self-expression, it's transformation. This applies just as much to roles that don't match an actor's gender, ethnicity, or culture. When Hollywood enforces identity limits instead of judging talent and suitability, it weakens the craft and stifles imagination. Mars stresses that flexibility is what makes films engaging, while rigid ideology turns acting into a lifeless formula.
Tom Hanks now says that if Philadelphia were made today, he wouldn't do it because the character was gay and he's not. Well, besides the fact that this would force all gay actors to reveal their sexuality, even if they didn't want to, great actors, which Tom is one, try hard to keep their private lives private so we don't think of their real lives when we see them in a movie that attempts to transport us into a different world. Could you really look at this actress now and not think of the trial? Should she only play bed-shitters now?
Actors, Mars argues, should keep their private lives private, so audiences can see them solely as the larger-than-life figures on screen. The more performers publicize their personal details, especially their sexuality, identity, or politics, the harder it becomes for viewers to separate the actor from the role. Instead of getting lost in the story, audiences are reminded of the person behind the performance. This oversharing doesn't just complicate casting, it fuels the problem. When actors turn personal identity into public activism, they box themselves in, creating expectations that every role must mirror their real life. Preserving mystery protects the art, keeps focus on storytelling, and allows actors to play anyone without ideological baggage.
Day-Lewis really like? I haven't a clue, which is why he's so great. Because when he plays Lincoln, I only see Lincoln. I don't think, well, there's a British heterosexual. But Hanks says, I don't think people would accept the inauthenticity of a straight guy playing a gay guy because, quote, we're beyond that now. Don't get him started on bosom buddies. I mean, really? Does Forrest Gump get thrown under the bus too because Tom isn't really mentally challenged? And as far as we're beyond that, no. No, that implies progress. This is the opposite. This is regression. And it's...
Tom Hanks is wrong, Maher says. This isn't progress, it's regression. Hollywood is drifting back toward an era many thought was over, when actors were excluded for reasons unrelated to ability. What's sold today as inclusion is really a new form of exclusion wrapped in comforting language. Instead of expanding opportunity, the industry is drawing hard lines about who can play what based purely on identity. It's old-fashioned gatekeeping with a modern label. Maher argues this so-called progress is undoing decades of artistic freedom, replacing creativity with moral scorekeeping. Hollywood isn't moving forward, it's reviving the same discriminatory thinking it claims to oppose, only now cloaked in virtue.
It is frankly typical of so much wokeness that doesn't build on liberalism. It undoes it. Empathy, putting yourself in someone else's place so you can understand them better, used to be the very heart of liberalism. Now it's considered offensive because don't even try to put yourself in my shoes because you could never know. What a bunch of that always was. Of course, no one can ever know exactly what another person's struggle is, but we try. Black Like Me was a 1950s book about a white man who darkened his skin and went out into society because he wanted to understand what his black brothers and sisters were up against. Today, all the woke mob would see about that was a guy who did blackface.
As Maher has said before, once someone fully adopts the woke mindset, nothing is ever enough. The rules constantly change, outrage never stops, and every response is deemed wrong. If white people ignore issues facing black communities, they're branded racist. If they acknowledge those issues or try to help, they're accused of virtue signaling or overstepping. It's a no-win scenario where standards shift endlessly and outrage resets itself. The woke brigade insists only their language, solutions, and worldview are acceptable. Anyone outside that circle, no matter how sincere, is attacked or dismissed. Maher's point is that this mindset doesn't solve problems. It deepens divisions, punishes good faith, and makes constructive dialogue impossible.
Sadly, a Gentile. And that's the new sin in Hollywood, being a non-Jewish actor portraying a Jew. Because that's always been the problem in Hollywood, not enough Jews. The woke even have a word for this troubling new phenomenon, Jew face. Do you see what I mean about them having their head up there? Really? The word you're using to fight anti-Semitism is Jew face? It sounds like something Mel Gibson says at a traffic stop.
Ultimately, Maher's takedown of Hollywood's woke casting crusade is more than a rant. It's a needed wake-up call for an industry choking on its own contradictions. He shows how actors like John Leguizamo forget the freedom that built their careers, how identity-based casting rules suffocate creativity, and how double standards reward some boundary crossing while condemning others. Mars reminds us that acting is meant to be transformative, not restrictive, and art rooted in imagination, not rigid identity markers. He warns that Hollywood's obsession with ideological purity isn't progress, but a slide backward into exclusion and creative paralysis. Oversharing by actors only empowers activists to police roles by identity instead of talent. And as Mars notes, trying to satisfy the woke mob is futile. The rules never stop changing. In the end, he calls for a return to sanity, storytelling first, talent over checklists, and movies free from ideological interference. If Hollywood doesn't change course, it risks losing both its creative soul and its audience. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time.